Elias Varon had always appeared unremarkable to the world, a quiet man with calm eyes, a monotone wardrobe, and a daily routine so ordinary that even neighbors forgot he existed. But behind the facade of simplicity lived a truth so enormous, so astonishingly layered, that if anyone ever uncovered it, it would shake financial markets, expose governments, and rewrite the story of wealth in the modern world. Because Elias Varon, the man who rode the subway, bought discounted groceries, and lived in a modest fourth-floor apartment, was in fact one of the richest men on earth, a billionaire many times over, a phantom of money and power, a ghost who controlled empires without ever showing his face. His hidden billionaire life began decades earlier, not through inheritance nor through luck, but through a secret talent for seeing opportunity in the shadows where others saw nothing. And the first seeds of his covert empire were planted when he was barely 20, working as an underpaid intern in a small analytics firm that processed financial data for larger corporations. He wasn't paid much, but he had access to information, raw, unfiltered, unpolished information about market flows, emerging technologies, abandoned patents, undervalued energy fields, forgotten land, deeds, dormant mining rights, and millions of data points no one bothered to interpret because they didn't look important. Elias saw patterns in chaos, connections in noise, and quietly, without drawing attention, he began acquiring microscopic assets, an old gas field in Kazakhstan nobody cared about, a cluster of failing warehouses in Canada, a near-worthless patent on a battery material everyone assumed would never work, a dusty 2% share in a collapsing tech firm. But where others saw dead weight, Elias saw future kings. 10 years later, the battery material became the backbone of the e-Fave revolution, the tech firm became a trillion-dollar giant, the warehouses turned into logistical gold, and the gas field sat on top of a reserve that would power half of Eastern Europe. Yet not a single document in public records bore the name Elias Varon. His ownership was layered through hundreds of shell corporations, blind trusts, encrypted custodial wallets, and private arrangements, made through intermediaries who never met him twice. His financial identity was a labyrinth intentionally designed so no investigator, no journalist, not even a government agency could trace a single thread back to him. The world saw billionaires flaunting jets, yachts, and supercars, men who loved cameras and headlines, but Elias learned early that real power lived in silence, and so he surrounded his empire with darkness. He lived in a modest building with flickering hallway lights, but he owned entire streets in cities he never visited. He wore the same coat for 7 years, but controlled luxury fashion houses whose designs walked global runways. He ate budget meals, but secretly held the largest private collection of rare wines in Europe, stored not in his home, but in climate-controlled cellars beneath a French chateau he owned under a false identity. Yet the strangest part was not his wealth, but the way he lived, devoid of desire for status, for recognition, or even comfort. He walked among people who earned less in a year than he made in an hour, but he never felt superior. In fact, he felt safer blending into the masses. His luxury existed elsewhere, in hidden places only he knew. Every few months he vanished from his ordinary life to step into the extravagant world only a ghost billionaire could access, flying in unmarked jets to private islands listed under numbers instead of names, staying in palaces disguised as research stations, dining in underground halls carved into mountains, and meeting with other hidden figures, people whose names never appeared on Forbes lists because the truly powerful never allowed themselves to be found. Together, they influenced elections without running for office, stabilized crashing markets with a single coordinated move, and quietly purchased entire industries before the public even realized those industries were vulnerable. Elias was the youngest among them, but also the most unpredictable, the one who played the long game, the one who invested in things that wouldn't become valuable for decades. He bought uninhabited land in Greenland anticipating climate shifts. He funded obscure research in quantum computing before mainstream scientists understood its implications, and he acquired rights to abandoned satellites that once belonged to defunct nations. He even invested in art created by unknown painters whose work he believed would rise after their deaths, because Elias understood something fundamental, something others often forgot. Value didn't exist until someone created a story around it. But while the world remained blind to his empire, there was one person who suspected something: his childhood friend, Mara Lintman, a journalist known for exposing financial scandals. She had reconnected with Elias purely by chance, and though he tried to maintain his usual quiet demeanor, she noticed things. The way he could discuss global markets with uncanny insight, the strange phone calls he stepped outside to take, the moments he disappeared without explanation, the fact that he never worried about expenses despite earning very little on paper. Mara's instincts told her there was a story behind him, something massive, something hidden, something world-shaking. Elias sensed her curiosity and feared that her investigation, if it continued, could unravel decades of meticulous secrecy, so he tried to distance himself, but Mara was relentless, and one night she followed him. She watched him board an unmarked car, saw the car enter a restricted underground tunnel beneath the city, and after hours of waiting she discovered an encrypted access terminal disguised as maintenance equipment. Her journalist's curiosity overpowered her caution as she began digging, not physically, but digitally, using her investigative network to trace shell companies, offshore filings, obscure land purchases, and leaked financial documents. Though most of Elias's structures were impenetrable, she uncovered fragments, small anomalies that didn't fit anywhere. Inexplicable transactions linked to non-existent individuals, revenue streams with no public names attached. She felt she was touching the edges of something vast, a hidden constellation of wealth scattered across the globe, and the deeper she went, the more she realized that someone had built a financial universe behind a curtain. Eventually, her research led her back to a single recurring code used in multiple private filings, a code she recognized from an old notebook Elias kept in high school, where he used that same pattern to mark ideas he wanted to hide. The moment she made that connection, Mara felt her stomach tighten. Could the quiet, unremarkable Elias she thought she knew actually be the invisible force manipulating global markets? She confronted him one evening in his small apartment. Elias froze, understanding immediately what she had discovered. He offered her tea, not because he wanted to calm her, but because he needed a moment to think. For the first time in decades, his carefully constructed world was at risk, not from enemies, governments, or economic rivals, but from the one person he truly cared about. After a long silence, Elias told her everything, not because he wanted to boast or justify himself, but because he was tired of living in fragments. He explained how he built his empire in shadows, how anonymity protected him, how visibility would only turn him into a target for powerful enemies who devoured public billionaires for sport. Mara listened, torn between fear, fascination, and responsibility. As a journalist, she held information that could change the world. As a friend, she held the heart of a man who had never asked for glory. Elias then told her the most shocking truth of all. Governments already knew hidden billionaires existed, and some quietly depended on them to stabilize global systems. If she exposed him, countries would panic, markets would collapse, alliances would crumble, and shadow networks would retaliate in ways she couldn't imagine. The truth, Elias said softly, wasn't always a weapon for justice. Sometimes it was a fuse for destruction. Mara realized the impossible choice before her: publish the story and change the world forever, or protect Elias and preserve a delicate global balance. In the end, she made her decision not to write the story, but to become its silent guardian. She destroyed her notes, erased her digital trails, and swore never to reveal his secret. Elias thanked her with the only gift he could give: trust. But trust came with consequences. By knowing the truth, she was now part of his hidden world, and Elias vowed to protect her with the full weight of his invisible empire. Their lives continued, his in shadows, hers in light, but connected by a secret larger than both of them. And though the world would never know his name, never see his wealth, never recognize his power, Elias Varon continued shaping the future from the darkness. The hidden billionaire, whose greatest luxury was not money but anonymity, the one thing even the richest men could never buy.